Hello everyone, Diana here, founder and president of SWEEP, the step-by-step weight enhancement program that is designed to last a lifetime. In this segment, we're going to cover the truth about calories in minus calories out and why you should not count them, especially if you're looking to lose weight or maintain. Now, the biggest reason for this is that not all calories are created equal. Well, there's an idea, right? Now, it's true that calories are energy and that our bodies require such energy to do things like pump the heart, breathe, move, think, and simply fuel all the organs. Given this, it is true that we need calories to function and, well, live. Now, here's the thing. Different chemical reactions happen in our body depending on the calorie type that we put in. That's right, there are different types of calories. It's like gas when you pull into the gas station. There's different types of fuel there, right? You can get the regular unleaded and you can go 25 miles on that, or you can get the super duper unleaded and you can go 30 miles on that. Can we make the connection here on fuel? It's not all the same. Now, the idea of calories in minus calories out, otherwise known as CICO, this comes from Newton's first law of thermodynamics, which states that the energy of an isolated system is constant. But here's the thing. The human body is not a single isolated system, but rather a very complex mix of many systems. Now, another idea that seems to be going around there, and another reason why we push calories in, calories out business is this idea that 3,500 calories equals a pound of weight. This was established way back in 1918 using a very small control group of just 333 people. And this is stuff that we're pushing the American people to do today, according to this one particular study done 100 years ago on an infinitesimally small group of people. No, and we started pushing this idea in 1978. Funny, 1978 is exactly when the weight epidemic began. It just started skyrocketing right there. I'm thinking there's a connection. Now, this kind of archaic thinking assumes that weight gain and or weight loss are caused by some kind of generic calorie excess or deficit. However, studies that are far more recent, like this decade, show that calories are not generic, and depending on where you get your calories from, they might either store instantly as body fat, they might flush right out of your body, or they might cause an excess of burning of fat within the body. Different types of foods are digested in our bodies differently because they go through different metabolic pathways, thus will affect our bodies in different ways. Different kinds of foods will also affect the hormones that regulate our eating thoughts, desires, and habits in various ways also. Therefore, the types of food that we eat are more important than how many calories we consume. Some types of calories, which is the same thing as saying some types of food, are addictive. Some promote healing, some will increase body fat, some will boost the burning of fat. They're all different. The calories in, calories out misinformation that we are fed does not take into account that food also carries information, if not phytonutrients, as well as calories. The type of foods that we eat will send specific instructions to our brain, which can create either hormonal or chemical chaos or balance and peace within our body. Now, it's when this chaos happens that we're gaining weight and then we're getting unhealthy. Now, this is all good news for food lovers everywhere, because what this means is that if you're getting your calories from certain sources, from the right sources, you actually want to have as many calories as possible in order to lose weight. Now do you see why simple calorie counting is just sabotaging your efforts for optimal weight? Okay. Eating more to weigh less. This is pretty big, and I love this one because it's absolutely true. So what if high calorie diets are caused by weight gain and not the other way around? I mean, it's assumed that high calorie diets cause weight gain. But what if weight gain causes the high calorie diets? Let's think about this. Maybe we have the cause and effects backwards. In the same way that a child's muscles and bones grow because of hormones, a person's fat mass is probably growing for the same reason. Now consider drugs like antidepressants, steroids, and birth control pills that have weight gain as a side effect. This weight gain has nothing to do with calories in the drugs, but rather how the drug changes hormone production. This will cause the person to either consume more calories, decrease their metabolism, or both. Now, neuroscience tells us that our thoughts, desires, and actions are actually caused by our hormones and neurocircuits in the brain. This includes the desire or tendency to think about food or not, to eat more or less, or to eat certain types of food. What and how we eat is directly controlled by our hormones and neurocircuits, making it impossible to just simply change our eating habits in the long run. So the question is, how can we change our hormones and neurocircuits in order to change our food thoughts, desires, and habits? Knowing what we know about food and calories, the short answer to this is to change the types of foods that we eat. But this goes against the current orders coming from our brain, right? So how can we make this change without completely disrupting our complex physiological processes or without feeling deprived and a loss of quality of life? Because that's important. Now, unlike the eat fewer calories notion, we should really eat more calories. Not just any kind of calories, though. They should be the right type. Again, to do this the right way, the sustainable way, I'm going to tell you to add or to increase rather than take away or decrease. The foods that we want to add or increase in our diets every day are the types of foods that will trigger the production of the hormones that will burn more calories in the same space of time, as well as tell our brain that we feel full and satisfied. This triggering effect will also decrease certain hormones that are screaming for us to eat foods that are automatically stored as body fat. In essence, by simply adding the right kinds of food rather than decreasing the wrong kinds, our cravings and desires for those wrong foods will naturally decrease. We will never feel deprived. Okay, so this brings us around to what are the right kinds of foods and what are the wrong kinds of foods. Wrong kind of food, glucose. Glucose spikes your blood sugar and insulin levels, which in turn will increase your stored body fat, inflammation, triglycerides, and blood pressure. It increases all those things. It will also decrease your testosterone levels. Listen up, guys. It'll decrease your good cholesterol, something that we want in abundance, and the leptin production, which will cause you to eat more when you don't have enough of that. Frequent high glucose levels can and does cause leptin resistance, and this is the hormone that tells your brain that the body has had enough to eat, that you're full. This resistance will cause the brain to think the body is almost always starving, no matter how much food you eat. Then we have the reward chemical in your brain is also triggered, which will cause a seeming addiction to sugars that you cannot control or resist. So when you hear things about food addiction, don't listen to that. It's not really an addiction. It's just about what hormones are being triggered, and we can set those straight. We really can. That's amazing, and it's exciting. So we don't have food addictions. All right. Okay. Another one that we kind of we'll count as a bad food is fructose. Fructose goes straight from the digestive tract right to the liver, which can turn it into glucose and be stored as glycogen. The problem is that if the liver is full of glycogen already, which is probably the case for most of us most of the time, then this is turned into body fat and it's stored either in the liver or other parts of the body. This causes more insulin resistance and in turn will cause chronically elevated insulin levels, possibly turning into diabetes. And this is the reason why we have a diabetic epidemic today as well, because we really, really do. Fructose can cause leptin and insulin resistance, causing the same world of havoc as consuming too much glucose. Unlike glucose, fructose won't decrease your ghrelin. The ghrelin is the hormone that tells your brain that you are hungry, causing you to overeat. But glucose does do that. A diet that is high in fructose can cause fatty liver disease, causes chronic inflammation, which increases insulin resistance further, and in turn will cause more weight gain. It is a vicious cycle. Glucose and fructose in moderate amounts is perfectly fine, and in fact, it's needed in your body. But the biggest problem is that many processed foods, even savory types like canned chili, I've seen it, contain them in super concentrated forms. You would never sit down and eat like 5 pounds of pineapple. Heck, most people can't even put 5 pounds of food in their stomach. But the amount of sugar in a can of something actually has that much sugar in it. And this is why we are overdosing on glucose and fructose. Okay, now let's talk about some lean protein now. The metabolic pathway for lean protein requires extra energy to digest. In fact, they say roughly about 30% of the calories in lean protein are used to digest it. So you spend 30% of those calories right there, just eating it. Okay? Protein also triggers the production of leptin, which will tell your brain that you are full and satisfied. Protein takes longer to break down and absorb, so the satisfied feeling lasts longer. Protein can increase muscle tissue, which will in turn increase your metabolism, because remember, the more muscle tissue we have, the more fat we're burning. So now you see there that it takes a different metabolic pathway, protein does, than the sugars do. Okay, so now let's take a look at carbohydrates, okay, because we hear an awful lot about carbohydrates. Sorry. We hear an awful lot about carbohydrates out there, and you have some diets that will tell you to stay away from them, and you have other diets that tell you to load up on them. So first, let us just define exactly what these carbohydrates are. Let's figure this whole thing out, okay? There are complex carbs and there are simple carbs, and they are different. First, let me define exactly what complex carbs are, because they're very different from the simple carbs, like I just said, and they take completely different metabolic pathways in the body. Most of the carbohydrates in complex carbs are the low glycemic type, while the carbs in simple carbohydrates are quickly converted straight into sugar. Unfortunately, people are all too often misinformed that there is a difference, or that they're outright lied to about what a complex carb is. And I've had arguments with people telling me that breads are complex carbs. No, they're not. Simple carbohydrates such as table sugar, bread, and pasta are processed into soft food and therefore are quickly absorbed into the body's organs, which will cause a spike in your levels of blood sugar and insulin. Because they are soft, they get in fast. This is because there's little to no fiber or other complex nutrients for the body to have to break down. Many people believe that whole grain breads and pastas are full of complex carbs simply because they are quote-unquote whole grain, but nothing can be further from the truth. It is important to know that some processed foods are still complex carbs. And you find this like shredded wheat is still a complex carb. Canned veggies, vegetables that are in a can, these are complex. So processing itself isn't always the culprit to poor nutrition, because these foods are processed and they're still whole and they're still complex. Now, it's true that all carbohydrates will turn into sugar once in the body. However, complex carbohydrates are whole plant-based foods that take much longer to digest, so they cannot cause a spike in blood sugar and insulin levels, since the sugar conversion in these carbs is distributed over a long period of time. This also helps you to feel full longer as well. Complex carbs also tend to contain so much fiber that most of the calories in these foods never even get absorbed. You can actually think of calories from these. Of the calories that do get absorbed into the body, they are taken up so slowly in the body that it would be impossible to cause an insulin spike or fat in the liver. Plus, the digestion process alone is likely to use the very few calories that are absorbed. Complex carbs will cause the stomach to distend, which is quite different from bloat, and tell the brain that you're full. The body will also experience an improved metabolic rate as well as decreased inflammation and bad cholesterol. So it's just so good for you. This is not to mention the increased body detoxification through the phytonutrients that complex carb foods are loaded with. They're loaded with nutrition. Your body needs them. So we absolutely want to have complex carbs. Load up, boys and girls. They're good for you. And they will not cause you to gain weight. They will not cause a problem in your sugar. They will not cause a problem with your hormones. So, don't count calories. Clearly, calories that come from glucose and fructose have completely different effect on those coming from protein and complex carbohydrates. Some types of calories from certain foods will trigger hormones and encourage weight gain, while others will cause hormones to encourage weight stabilization or even weight loss. So calories, like fats and carbs, are not all created equal. So we can't treat them like they are. So consciously counting calories is not needed to lose weight. Is this great news? It's great news. In fact, increasing your consumption of healthy fats, increasing your consumption of lean protein, increasing your consumption of fiber and other phytonutrients is scientifically proven to decrease your appetite and to decrease your overall calorie intake. So it's automatic. But don't go out and rush for any type of fad or weight loss diet just yet, okay? Because scientific studies also show that weight loss diets from decreasing your fat, decreasing your carbs, decreasing your calorie, these will actually reduce your metabolic rate. And I've got an article on this over there at my site too. The brain responds to such diets by adjusting hormone production to increase hunger and decrease metabolism in order to maintain its fat mass. This is due to the body's fat set point, which is regulated by the hypothalamus. I can't pronounce it. Okay, as long as the body believes that starvation might be imminent, then the fat set point won't go down. If you give your brain the idea that starvation has already begun, such as going on a low-fat diet, decreasing your carbs, decreasing your calories, or any kind of a weight loss diet, then it will increase the fat set point. Okay, and this is why we end up weighing more after doing diets than we did before. I remember seeing this thing on Facebook that said, geez, I wish I was as fat as I was the first time I thought I was fat. How many people can relate to that? So, yeah, and the thing is not only does it increase your fat set point here, scientific studies show that this increase can actually be permanent. Who'da thunk? Like, we don't see it all over the place. Sure we do. Now you know why I say don't count the things you don't want. The only way to decrease your body's fat set point is to flood it with a ton of nutrients for an extended period of time. Once the fat set point has decreased, then you should very slowly decrease your food consumption, if you want to. You could think of this process kind of like sneaking up on and then hijacking your enemy. When comparing high healthy fat and protein diets to low fat and low calorie diets, studies have found that a high healthy fat and high protein diet actually decreases appetite and allows people to lose weight without counting calories. Without counting calories. Well, those on low fat or calorie diets had to restrict the amount of food that they consumed because that's the diet. Those who were eating high healthy fats and high protein did not and ate until they were full. They got to eat until they were done eating. But the studies show that those who were eating high amounts of healthy fat and protein lost more weight than those who restricted their fat or who restricted their calories. This is significant. Let's not count calories, boys and girls, not if you want a healthy weight. The high healthy fat and protein dieters naturally started eating fewer calories because their appetite automatically decreased. So you don't have to consciously count calories or consciously cut out calories to decrease your calorie consumption. We simply need to change the types of foods that we eat. Which should be gradual. When you change the types of foods that you eat, it should be gradual and always as an increase to bring down the body's fat set point. Because if it's not a gradual change, you're going to shock your body. You're going to increase your fat set point. That's why we need to do it slowly. That's why with the SWEET program, we work with the people to do one step at a time. That's one change at a time. You make one change, you get that in, you make that habit. Once that has become habit and your body has adjusted to it, then we will introduce another change. And this is why, one of the reasons, because there's a number of reasons, but this is one of the reasons why the SWEET program really works. This is why I can say that this is a step-by-step weight enhancement program that is designed to last a lifetime. So calories in, calorie out way of thinking doesn't take nutrient needs into consideration, nor how getting the right amount can drastically change your appetite and cravings, or drastically change your metabolic rate. Optimal weight and health, therefore, goes far beyond calorie counting, far beyond. And that's what we seek to do here at SWEEP, is to put your body into a great state of health, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. A healthy body cannot be a fat body. When you have all of your organs doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, you're going to be at your optimal weight. And you're going to be able to enjoy cakes and ice creams and cookies and all kinds of junk. I do. It's awesome. For more simple tips on losing weight and increasing your good health, jump right on over to my website, weightenhancement.com. I would love to hear from you.